I'd like to show you the outline of what I'll be covering today. And so the first thing, of course, will be an overview of skin structure and function. And that's important because you'll see why you want to eat certain foods and how that actually helps the skin. The second thing is specifically how does certain nutrients and nutrition in general affect the skin? And why is it better to get it through food and not pills? The last thing is we'll go over specific skin healthy foods, and I'll share with you some of my favorites. I mean, even for myself, I have noticed that eating better, and lifestyle really changes the skin. You could really see it in your skin. I mean, look at our president. Each time they enter office and when they leave, it's night and day, right? So you can tell from diet and lifestyle, it's reflected in one's appearance. And so we will talk about specific skin healthy foods. So when it comes to skin health and other areas of health, you really are what you eat. This might be a little too much detail, but I wanted to show you the complexity of the skin. And when you hear skin products that say, oh, it contains collagen and elastin and keratin, what are they really referring to, and why is that important? So some things I'll point out here are the fact that the epidermis is the top layer and the dermis is here. We'll go over some of the structures within that. And also notice that there are two vessel plexes. So there are blood supply that go to the very superficial part of the skin, and also another plexus deeper into the skin. In addition, you'll see that there's a hair follicle here, and that unit is called the pilosebaceous gland. Sebaceous referring to the fact that it's sebum secreting. And those are made of fat, mainly triglycerides. Okay, so really the bigger picture, the role of the skin is for protection, and you'll notice that on your hands and feet you might actually have a thicker layer of skin from just from use. So the body produces greater layers of skin in order to add to this protective layer. In fact, the skin on our hands and feet have significantly greater layers than the other parts of our skin. So this top layer is the stratum corneum, are actually platelet-like envelopes filled with keratin. But these are dead skin cells from here on up. So I'm not going to go over all of this, but epidermis, that's actually, on a microscopic level, really looks really significant there, but it's really only 1 millimeter in thickness, and it takes about 4 weeks total to go from the stratum basal, which is the very bottom layer, to the top. So that's how long it takes for the skins, to turn over completely. Within that is also the melanocytes in the basal layer, which give our skin color, and it also changes with UV light. The dermis is where you'll see the connective aspect, including collagen, elastic fibers, etc. And we know that UV light, for example, can affect the elasticity of the skin, and there are certain nutrients that can improve the elasticity. And then again, I pointed out the blood vessels. And then there are some skin appendages, which include different kinds of sweat glands, one that helps regulate temperature, and one that has more to do with, interacts with bacteria and things like that. So overview of skin function. The primary thing is barrier, right? I mean, I believe the skin weighs a total of about, I think, 8 pounds or something like that. It's a pretty significant organ. You cannot live without it. So it's mainly a barrier to the outside. It also allows for things like, sensing where you are, because there's nerve endings. Very importantly, the temperature regulation. Let's see, what else? A number of things. So it's not just, it's not just the barrier. It's also the immune system, etc. So there's a principle in natural medicine called Herring's Law. And Herring's Law says that we heal from within outward and from head to toe, and generally speaking. And that's most obvious to me, because I teach dermatology, on the skin, because you can see that happening in some cases of a skin condition where you'll see the healing occur from head to toe, and really generally with all conditions from the inside out. So that's why you want to treat the skin from the inside out, because that's where the healing process starts and ends. Well, I won't go into too much detail, but some examples of that are different skin conditions, as well as things like asthma. Okay, so now let's switch gears and talk about the bigger picture. Let's look at the whole person, since that's what we treat in natural medicine. The organs of elimination. So do you know what the organs of elimination are? These are the organs of elimination: skin, lungs, the lymphatic system. So your lymph nodes are all connected by the lymphatic system. It's part of the lymphatic system. The bowel, colon, liver, and kidneys. So the skin is only one of many organs of elimination. Therefore, in order to help skin health, you want to promote all of the organs of elimination. You want to help the rest of the body eliminate toxins from the system. Okay, now let's go in and dissect the skin a minute and just look at the cell membrane. So did anyone take biology back in the day? Maybe high school at least, right? And then college maybe. Cell membranes in any cell in your body are made of a bilipid membrane. So we'll come back to this, but that is why it's important to eat good fats, is that the good fats get incorporated into literally every cell of your body. The better the cell membrane, the better interaction cells can have with each other. And good fats are anti-inflammatory, so if you want a good barrier to the skin, you have to start with looking at the cell membrane and improving the integrity of the cell membrane. So again, that's why essential fatty acids are responsible for healthy cell membranes, which are not just a barrier, but also a passageway for nutrients to cross in and out, and for waste products to get in and out of the cell. Not to mention the fact that the cell membrane of the skin also holds the water in, so you're retaining fluid and keeping the cell healthy. Okay, now we're going to go into a little bit of almost biochemistry, and I'm sorry if it's a little TMI, but I feel like it's an important setup for later on when we talk about actual nutrients. I know, too much information, but let me just point out, series 1, 2, and 3, here is, these are basically fatty acid pathways, and down here, the series 3 will focus on the omega-3s, which of course you've heard of, and that includes flax seeds and fish oil. I always like to point to those because those tend to be the highest in omega-3s, versus omega-6s, which can be good things like nuts and seeds, but animal fats in series 2 can lead to an inflammatory pathway. So the idea is not to just eat omega-3s. Your body needs a balance of omega-3s and 6s. So anyone know what olive oil is? Is that an omega-3 or an omega-6? Anyone have a guess? Yeah, so it's thought to be more of a 6. It actually mostly is 6, but it's actually, there's a little bit of 3 there too, but that's what I would have said. But anyway, it's on this pathway though, what we see in the American diet is that we have way too much 6, right? That's what everyone knows, and that's why we have to add in more 3s. And they're called essential fatty acids because we can't synthesize them in our body. We have to eat them. So what do you think? Is it better to eat flax seeds or fish oil? Fish oil? Why do you say that? Okay, yeah, so in a way it's true, because if you see the pathway, flax is over here, it requires an enzyme in your body called delta-6 desaturase to get to the point where fish oil is. So fish oil contains EPA and DHA, and that's further down the pathway where it gets to be utilized and be anti-inflammatory. So flax seeds are, will definitely work, but let's say your delta 60 saturase isn't working so well, you can't break down this fatty acid well, then it'll be hard to get to the point where it serves as an anti-inflammatory. So they're both fine. And let's see.
Chia seeds fit in there somewhere?
Pardon me?
Chia seeds?
Chia seeds, I think probably are also an omega-3 and 6. Yeah. Okay, so long story short, good oils are important because one, as we saw earlier with the cell membrane, it improves the integrity of the barrier, and two, it's anti-inflammatory. Okay, now stepping back again and looking at the big picture. So how does the skin fit into the whole picture? This picture is a courtesy of one of my colleagues, Paul Anderson. So what we're trying to describe here is, first of all, here's the liver. And the liver takes in, processes, hormones, toxins, even food, and other things that need to be broken down. And that gets secreted to the bile. You know where the bile is, right? Where the bile comes from the gallbladder, and that gets dumped into the GI tract, and that goes to the stool. So let's just look at toxins in general, because the liver, again, doesn't just metabolize toxins, but let's pick on that. So the liver is breaking down, and that brings it to the stool and is excreted. The liver is also an area where the blood is filtered. So then this blood that's been filtered then goes to the kidneys, the blood flow to the kidneys, and the kidneys then filter that again, and that gets excreted. So if we look at that again, the liver, there's phase 1 and 2 detox in the liver. That again goes to the bile or through the blood to the urine. But some of that unprocessed stuff can end up in the skin and accessory structures like hair and glands. That's why people have, wanted to do like skin analyses and things like that, which I don't necessarily endorse. But this is kind of the big picture, how the skin fits into the whole process of detoxification. Okay, so that's a backdrop, and it'll be helpful for you later when I talk about specific nutrients to have that backbone. So how does nutrition affect the skin? Well, I'd like to point out one case. I mean, there's many, obvious reasons why we should eat well and how that affects the skin, but let's just look at something like acne. So there's two non-westernized populations in Papua New Guinea and Paraguay in which they've never heard of the condition acne. So in the Western culture, acne affects up to 95% of adolescents and persists into the middle age in 12% of women and 3% of men. And most of us, kind of remember going through that, right, through puberty. There are some populations out there, and this is just, how should I say it, like speculation, but there's many other studies to show this too, that in cultures that don't eat refined carbs and a lot of dairy and things like that, where they eat mostly like a Paleolithic diet, fruit, fish, game, tubers, no cereals or refined sugars, these cultures tend to be healthier in many ways, and it definitely is so with skin. This particular study concluded that a high glycemic carbohydrate diet led to hormonal changes that caused acne. And other people have said, well, it could also be the fact that they also don't take in a lot of dairy, but at any rate, very clean Paleolithic diet led to a culture with literally no acne. They didn't even know what that condition was. Now let's look at nutrient deficiencies in skin. And this is all leading up to then what do we do? So first of all, the skin, GI tract, these are areas where there are rapidly dividing tissues. So if you've known anyone who've had the unfortunate situation where they had to go through chemo, they lost their hair and their GI tracts were affected greatly. And that's partly because these cells in these organs rapidly divide and turn over, and therefore have a high nutritional demand. So I'll highlight a couple things where you can see problems with frank deficiencies. So if a person is vitamin A deficient, and I mean severe, you will have them complaining of dry eyes, scaling skin, and hyperkeratosis, which I have a picture of here. There's this common sort of bumpy thing behind people's arms that is called keratosis pilaris, and you know, it's nothing serious, but it is thought that it may be due to essential fatty acid and vitamin A deficiency. So don't go out and just go buy some vitamin A and take vitamin A. We're going to talk about food. So coming back to the list here, though, other things I wanted to point out: vitamin C plays a big role in the skin, especially wound healing. It has a lot to do with collagen repair. A person can have really swollen gums because of the effect that it has on collagen, et cetera, and connective tissue. Zinc, so again, in a more severe case where a person, this is actually a genetic condition, so it's going to be rare to see someone actually have such frank zinc deficiency, but this is a condition where this person has a genetic disorder of zinc absorption. But you know, even if you don't have a zinc absorption, if you don't get enough zinc in your diet, you can see problems, maybe not that severe, but similar symptoms. EFAs are a common one. EFA deficiency can lead to a scaling rash, which is pictured here, et cetera. But before you diagnose yourself, of course, be seen by your doctor and figure out what's the cause before just trying a supplement. It's really rare to see this one now, but if you have B3 deficiency, it can lead to a condition called pellagra. And back in the day when this was more common, you know, it was characterized by the 4 Ds: diarrhea, dermatitis, dementia, and death. So it's, but the skin lesions look like that. All right, so moving on to things that we can do. Specific skin healthy foods. Okay, so certain foods enhance the skin integrity, and now we see what, you know, skin integrity, how that's important, the barrier of the skin, the cell membrane. So certain foods enhance the cell integrity and health, and that includes antioxidant-rich foods and anti-inflammatory foods. Anybody know why it's important to take antioxidants? Like, what is the whole point of taking antioxidants? Why is that important, and how does that help? Free radicals, exactly. So free radicals, such as the kind that we get from the sun, damage the membrane. So we're back to the membrane again. Damage the membrane of skin cells, potentially allowing for damage to the DNA of that cell. So it's, you know, pretty, it can even lead to things like cancer, right? So short of that, though, it can lead to premature aging and just poor skin health. So that's the primary reason for taking in antioxidants. And then there's anti-inflammatory foods. You know, it can almost be said that many conditions in the body start with problems with inflammation. So cancer, heart disease, all those things have an underlying inflammation problem.
I have a question, please, on antioxidant. Is a topical antioxidant, does that work?
Topical antioxidants don't work very well. So first of all, there's an issue of it not being absorbed through the skin. I mean, you could see the skin, it's a pretty strong barrier. For it to get to deeper layers, it takes a while. Or it takes a lot of work for people to manufacture something that can be delivered all the way to deeper areas of the skin. Number 2, they're short acting. So it's very temporary, and it's way more effective to take in antioxidants than it is to put it on the skin. Having said that, I do use vitamin E cream actually on my skin, and it can help, but it's not, you know, the only way, or it's not the best way to get antioxidants into the skin. Okay, so big picture, the principles here are going to be to enhance eat certain foods to enhance skin integrity. 2, there are some skin conditions that are aggravated by food intolerance. And actually the overarching term is food sensitivity, and within that there's food intolerance and food allergy. So when you hear that term, people say, oh, I think I have a food allergy, but do you have a food intolerance or a food allergy? They're different. And the overarching umbrella term is food sensitivity. So I just put food sensitivity here because that refers to both allergy and intolerance. And if you do think there might be a food problem here, if you're noticing that a certain food does trigger a symptom that you have in the skin, consult your doctor and identify that food. There are a number of ways to do that. And a good example of that is eczema, which is by definition an allergic condition, which can be helped by identifying the right foods. Okay, so number 3, what else can you do? Optimize the organs of elimination, right? Which we mentioned earlier, how that whole system works. If you can improve the other organs of elimination, your skin is going to have way less work to do in terms of eliminating toxins from the body. Eat a low glycemic load, low sugar diet because refined carbs can be inflammatory. So eating a lot of white flour products can be actually inflammatory to the body. And finally, there's a saying in natural medicine, when in doubt, treat the gut. And a lot of times we see the skin health be reflective of GI health. So optimize the digestion through things that we'll talk about in a moment here. There's much to say about antioxidant-rich foods, but I will point out 3 of the top ones, selenium, vitamin E, and C. So it is thought that selenium, it may be somewhat depleted from our soil. So it's hard to get enough selenium, which is maybe the underlying contributing factor to a number of health conditions. And so it's important to be mindful and eat more selenium-rich foods. It's a precursor to glutathione, which is one of the most powerful antioxidants in our body. It helps generate glutathione in our body. The best source would be Brazil nuts, and there's whole grains, seafood, garlic, eggs, and I've given you a handout with some sources. But Brazil nuts, go to Whole Foods and buy the bulk organic, Brazil nuts. Toast it a little bit if you want, and eat a couple a day. You don't want to eat too many. Usually 2 or 3 is about the equivalent of 200 micrograms of selenium, which is about what you need a day. You don't want to OD on the stuff, so you just, a couple a day, or at the end of the week, eat the equivalent of a couple of Brazil nuts a day, and then be aware of these other foods as well. So there are quite a few studies on selenium, and it's definitely shown in studies to be protective against both everyday and excess UV damage. It's been shown to delay the development of skin cancer and things like that, and many other conditions that are beyond the scope of this topic. Vitamin E. So it's considered to be one of the most important antioxidants because it protects the cell membrane and prevents damage to the enzymes within that. So one of the issues is food versus supplements. It's so easy just to go buy vitamin E, right, from Costco or something. But the problem with that is that the way vitamin E occurs in nature is often different than what you're getting in a pill, because they're giving you usually something called alpha tocopherol, which is one of the many tocopherols contained in vitamin E. So if you look at the bottle that you have at home, I bet you it says alpha tocopherol. And so if you're going to buy vitamin E, and I really should focus on foods, but if you're going to buy vitamin E, try to buy ones that have mixed tocopherols. There's alpha, beta, gamma, delta, et cetera, tocopherols, and they've shown that these other tocopherols are just as important, if not more important, in some cases for preventing certain conditions. And there's very specific studies on that. For example, a study in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences looked at a study on prostate cancer and how a certain type of tocopherol, not the alpha, was actually more helpful. So long story short, the diet is the best way to get vitamin E because you're getting it the way it was packaged in nature, how it was supposed to come. And so sunflower seeds, I was looking at a list of foods that were highest in vitamin E, and by far sunflower seeds, were, of the foods that we commonly eat, were the highest ones. So you can get sunflower butter, or toasted sunflower seeds and throw them on your salad regularly. Not to mention the good oils that it contains and how it's good for both the brain, skin, etc. Vitamin C, we talk about vitamin C all the time, and again, it is, one of those things that help to prevent damage from free radicals. But also unique to vitamin C is the fact that it's involved in collagen repair. And we've already seen where collagen is in the skin, and collagen repair is important for all kinds of things, joints, etc. And I've already mentioned this, but why again should we try to get it from foods versus supplements? Well, again, in nature, it's already packaged in a very good way. Vitamin C is packaged usually in nature along with bioflavonoids. And what do bioflavonoids do? Why is that important? Anyone have any idea? So bioflavonoids generally, give something the color or the sort of the connective aspect of a fruit or vegetable, and on a nutrient level, vitamin E or bioflavonoids help to prevent the breakdown of the vitamins as it's going into the body, so that the vitamins can stay intact. In addition, vitamin C is better absorbed in the presence of flavonoids. There's so many reasons why it's good to have vitamin C along with bioflavonoids. So if you're going to take, again, I'm not trying to talk too much about supplements, but if you're going to take vitamin C, do take them with bioflavonoids. And often they come in the store that way, but that's why it's better to get it through food, because it's already in that form. Yeah, so I had a note to myself about this. So bioflavonoids protects vitamin C and vitamin E from the oxidative decomposition during digestion. So it prevents it from completely breaking down and not being able to be used while you're digesting. So my favorite vitamin C rich foods is not necessarily citrus, because some people are intolerant to citrus, and if you eat too much of any one thing, there's a chance in some people of developing an intolerance. Like if you drink orange juice every single day of your life, that may not be a good thing. It's good to get variety. So I point out things usually to people like kiwi, which has a ton of vitamin C, and it's actually quite tolerable by most people. Brussels sprouts. So pick your favorite, vitamin C rich food, and and make sure to get that into your diet regularly. But know the list and try to keep it varied.
Excuse me, do you have any more of your handouts?
Oh, let's see. I do have more PowerPoint handouts. Maybe someone can. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's more here. So a website that I will point you to is something called whfoods.org, and that stands for World's Healthiest Foods.org. So whfoods.org. And there are many websites. I actually provided you a handout with a number of websites like Cucus Interruptus, other ones that I'll talk a little bit about later. But whfoods.org gives you a list of foods that are high in a certain nutrient. So let's say you're iron deficient or something, and you needed to know which foods on a scale are high in iron or something like that. You can go to that website. It also has recipes and how to pick a certain fruit or vegetable at the store. I mean, everything you could possibly need to know about eating whole foods. So other antioxidant-rich foods. Try to eat beta-carotene-rich foods on a regular basis. So if you're a big fan of like yams or something, then make like a kale, and yam, roasted, dish, or any one of these other foods that are high in beta carotene. That's a really important thing, because beta carotene is a precursor to vitamin A. So if you tend to have symptoms consistent with low vitamin A, this is one way to boost your vitamin A, is to get more beta carotene. And it's safer to take things in the beta carotene form than it is to take straight vitamin A, because vitamin A can be toxic in high doses. So other antioxidant-rich foods that I would love to point out are the following. So dark colored berries, we hear about that in the news, and people talk about it all the time, and that's because it has one of the highest antioxidant capacities of any foods. And perhaps it's the dark, bioflavonoid-rich aspect of it, but it really packs a punch. If you're going to eat, a certain fruit, at least once a week, then try blueberries, or something like that. And please pick organic, because I will go to this website real quick. Organic, because I'm sure you're familiar with this list. Go to ewg.org, our food. So again, ewg.org, and I clicked on this, our food, and down here on the right is the shopper's guide to pesticides in produce, and that changes every year. So blueberries were not on the list of the top before, and now they are. So let's look at the whole list. Please avoid, these. Number 1, apples. Please buy organic apples, celery, strawberries, peaches, spinach, nectarines, grapes, imported grapes. Apparently domestic grapes are okay, but still, consider organic. Bell peppers, potatoes, blueberries made it on the list, lettuce, kale, collard greens. So usually any dark leafy greens, because dark leafy greens or vegetables in general contain both vitamins and minerals, whereas fruits actually contain mostly vitamins. So vegetables, you can get the whole package, vitamins and minerals, and so it really, by nature, just sucks in a lot of nutrients from the soil, including things that are not good, so toxins, and also people spray, pesticides, which can contain things like arsenic, which is directly skin cancer causing. We're all on a budget these days, so I don't usually buy organic on the low pesticide list. I really don't. Like, I just go, oh, well, yeah, the kiwi looks like it's 20 cents more per kiwi if I buy the organic, so I'm just going to buy non-organic, but that's up to you. If you can afford to and want to eat all organic, that's great, but don't feel like you have to. There are some foods that are pretty low in pesticides.
Does that take away the pesticide amount?
It can lower it, but but there's some things that can still remain or even go beyond the layer of the skin. But that's certainly going to reduce it by quite a bit. Okay, so now that we've seen the inflammation pathways, now let's look at the anti-inflammatory foods, the good fats. And a lot of this but a lot of this, I want to reinforce for encouragement to do these things. So again, EFAs are important for healthy cell membranes, so not just your skin, but every cell membrane. I mean, every organ is made up of cells, and if you can improve the cell membrane health, the better the cells will interact with each other, etc. As you know, our diet is full of saturated fats that are hydrogenated, too many omega-6s versus 3s, etc. So the top 3 best foods for omega-3s are definitely cold water fish, flax seeds, and walnuts, if you had to just pick on foods. And so here's where I talk a little about fish oil, because most of us, either don't or do not want to eat fish, 3 to 4 ounce serving daily, because A, it could be expensive, B, the waters are polluted. It's very hard to get good fish. And I remember standing in line at PCC right after the nuclear incident in Japan, and the lady in front of me was stockpiling salmon. She bought the whole shelf full of salmon and was going to freeze it. And she was telling the cashier person, this is going to be the last round of fish I eat. And you don't have to go that extreme, but there are some concerns about the water in general, not just from the nuclear incident, but the PCBs, et cetera, that we find in fish. So, of course, sticking to smaller cold water fish it's important. But when you're buying a fish oil, it's not all created equal either. If you just buy any old fish oil off the shelf, it can have the same concerns. Like, it could have heavy metals, or it could have chemicals in the processing. So don't save money on fish oil. Choose the good brands like Nordic Naturals, Pharmax, Carlson's. I'm not here to endorse any one company, but just pick one that is reputable and also will state on the bottle how much DHA and EPA that it has. Remember, back in that pathway, the main omega-3s that fish oil has is DHA and EPA. If the bottle won't tell you how much it has, then it probably doesn't have, it doesn't have enough omega-3s in the form of DHA and EPA. So make sure what you buy tells you how much DHA and EPA to take in, that it contains.
I have a question here. When you refer to cold water fish, are you referring to non-farm raised?
Yeah, wild is best. The kinds of fish you can eat safely now is sadly kind of narrowing, but the smaller the fish too, the better. So use extra virgin olive oil, which again contains both 3s and 6s, but don't heat it at high temperatures, of course, because that'll oxidize the oil. So when choosing the oil, cold pressed or expeller pressed is important, or extra virgin, because it means the only thing that has happened is that it's been pressed, heated, and bottled. If it's commercially processed, doesn't say it's cold pressed or expeller pressed, then it probably involves solvents, and it's been processed probably 5 to 6 times. Therefore, you'll lose nutrients due to the processing. I mean, if you look at really refined oils, it's almost see-through. If you look at the oils that are refined in order to be used for high heat, which is great because we need to have some of those refined oils to be able to use it in high heat. However, you really lose quite a bit of the nutritional value. And with all oils, please keep them in a cool, dark storage area, and even refrigerate if needed. In the summer, I refrigerate all my oils because I just don't want to risk them becoming oxidized. Okay, so other few foods I want to highlight here are burdock root. Burdock root is a great skin food, and it's mainly eaten in the Asian culture. In fact, there's this soup that I remember someone sent an email saying, yeah, in this one Asian country, everyone's drinking this soup because it's been touted to be, very anti-cancer, and then I see that in another Asian culture, it's one of their traditional soups that they drink for New Year's, and it includes burdock, daikon, including its leaf, carrots, and shiitake mushrooms. So those are all amazingly, powerfully antioxidant-rich foods, and most of the stuff that you're going to take in that helps your skin is going to also prevent cancer. They just happen to be on the same list. So I tried that soup, and I thought, it not only helps your skin, but it helps your digestion, and it's very cleansing. So burdock, daikon, along with the leaf, carrot, shiitake, boil it down, and then you can blend it.
Can you show a picture of the burdock root? What does it look like?
Burdock root is dark brown. It's probably in diameter about an inch. on average. So it just looks like a stick. I mean, it just has this brown sort of woodsy looking exterior, but
Is that white inside?
it is like, yeah, whitish inside. But you can get it at Asian food stores. I'm sure PCC and Whole Foods carries it, maybe not on an ongoing basis, but I've seen it there as well. Let's see, so question?
Do you have to actually eat the root, or could you like steep it or make a tea?
Yes, you can make a tea out of it too.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually I usually prescribe it in the form of tea, but just so you know, since we're focusing on foods, it is edible. Okay, so I got a note from the back that I need to speed up, so I'll take questions at the end. Real quick, a couple more things. Obviously minimize UV light exposure, although I will say around here, I mean on a day like this, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the sunscreen. I mean, that's maybe should be off the record because some people say wear it all year round. But if you weigh, pardon me?
70% of the rays get through on a body.
It's true, but we also need a little bit of the sunlight. So, maybe I shouldn't say that, but minimize UV light exposure, obviously for skin, to prevent skin disease. The reason why I say that about the sun exposure, if you're fully clothed and you're going from your garage to your work and back, I personally wouldn't say you would have to use sunscreen, but to be like ultra safe, you should. However, if you look at the EWG, back to this website, 2011 sunscreen safety guide, best and worst, pick a good sunscreen. Like pick one that has an effective sunscreen, and B, that has the least number of chemicals. So yeah, I generally do recommend sunscreen most of the year. But if you're literally not going to be outside, then I'd say don't worry about it too much. Anyway, minimize UV light exposure. Eliminate and avoid inorganic arsenic by eating mostly organic. Avoid obvious carcinogens. Consider further stimulating the skin and immune system with supplemental antioxidants. And sadly, in our culture, we just don't have enough time or maybe resource to eat an amazing whole foods diet every day. So it's okay to get the antioxidants through supplements as well. And in a lot of cases, I recommend that. Regular skin checks, adequate rest and exercise, and stress reduction. So I left that website there for you to pick the best sunscreen for yourself, because they're definitely not all created equal. Some have, some things in it that like oxybenzone and things like that are effective in the sunscreen capability. In fact, the sunscreen I'd use has maybe a little bit of that in it, unfortunately. But I've, based on pros and cons, have picked the best sunscreen for myself, I think, for now. And I need to keep an eye on their guidelines. So again, other things you can do are consider the possibility that you might be intolerant to a certain food. I encourage you to enhance elimination. So if you have poor bowel movements, or you've noticed that, wow, I used to be able to drink a glass of wine and now I feel very sick after alcohol. Well, maybe there's something we need to do about your liver or digestion. I'm also a huge fan of probiotics through foods. So miso, kefir, yogurt, kombucha, if that's your thing, and or supplemental probiotics, because that's the compost pile, right, in the colon. That's how things are fully broken down. In addition, certain vitamins are even synthesized through the breakdown through bacteria, and we actually have more bacteria in our guts than we have cells in our body. That's how important bacteria is to us. The quality of the bacteria in our guts is very important for our vitality. Exercise. If I had to say, what Americans really need in general, it'd be two things: exercise and more vegetables. And so exercise is, obviously good for so many things, but in addition, it's the best way to promote cleansing, because you're you're bringing blood flow to the organs of elimination, you're moving your lymph, you're bringing blood flow to your liver, your digestive tract, it improves motility, it brings sweat to the skin. So, help out the skin by enhancing other organs of elimination, helping the digestion, helping with movement of the lymph, etc. How much water should you drink? So this will, couple more slides and then I'll take questions. General rule of thumb, we hear 8 glasses, and that's usually what I recommend. So 64 ounces approximately. However, we all weigh different amounts, right? And so it can vary. And generally speaking, water intake should be water, and that can only include herbal teas with no caffeine. So green tea is actually not part of this because it has a little bit of a diuretic effect. So water should be about 1/3 up to half your body weight in ounces. So it starts at 1/3 minimum. And sometimes that up to half is too much. So if you're 200 pounds, that means you divide by 3, so it's 1/3, and that would be 66, and then you convert that to ounces. So that's the minimum water intake you should be taking in. And then if you exercise for an hour, add 8 ounces. So the rule of thumb is 8 ounces for every 1 hour of exercise. Again, it really can vary depending on a person's constitution. And please replace with electrolytes if necessary. Most people come in dehydrated to the clinic here. However, some people drink way too much water, actually. Maybe a couple people that have come in say they drink, gallons, and it may be too much because you're flushing out your electrolytes. So replace with electrolytes if necessary. Stress reduction, and I'm almost done here. Keeping stress to minimum cannot be I can't emphasize it enough because it can aggravate really any skin condition or other health condition. So there's a couple of actual skin conditions that are clearly aggravated by stress, and I see that. So when I have a patient come in and they're worse, I ask them about stress, and it doesn't have to be just emotional stress. Could be a physiologic stress or spiritual, mental, emotional disconnect of some sort. Okay, so again, I'm re-emphasizing exercise because it also improves circulation to the skin, bringing blood flow, nutrients to the skin, and bringing toxins away from the skin. In conclusion, to maintain optimal skin health and integrity, now you know the reasons for, well, you probably already knew, but reiterating the importance of antioxidant-rich foods and anti-inflammatory foods, and why not to eat like oxidized, oils and things that, fried foods and things like that. Consider removal of possible food sensitivities that would be ID'd through your doctor. Optimize organs of elimination, especially digestion, and eating a low refined carb diet because that can also be inflammatory. Okay, so any questions? Okay, well, I'll just move back. So I'll start with the front.
Okay, what I'm interested in is, okay, the damage is done. What can we do besides those things to correct the damage? And also, for instance, I have really thin skin. It's genetic. Is there anything I can do to beef it up?
Let's see. To reverse the damage, it depends on what damage has been done. So, there, of course, we see like certain spots on the skin that are just a normal part of aging, which are not reversible. However, it's really getting back to the basics. Clean air, food, water, lifestyle. It's hard to. It's the foundation of health. I have a lot of supplements I usually recommend, but without that foundation of health, it's hard to get there. So to answer that, it's just like start today kind of thing. There are supplements that we can do, but I'd say like really make sure the things that you're doing have high nutritional value in these areas. Anytime you eat, just be mindful of that. skin thinning, I also teach geriatrics at Bastyr, so it's also a normal part of aging. When hormones decline in the body, the skin changes. So it can either be approached through sort of a improved skin integrity approach by nutrients, or sometimes it can be affected by hormone balance, but that's another topic. Yeah. You have 3 questions?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Easy one. First one, can we overdo the vitamin in one particular food that we like? Let's say I like carrots and I eat carrots every day. Would that put me in any way?
You know, that's the cool thing about food. Can we OD on eating carrots? Probably not. You're going to either have a stomach ache or have, you're going to evacuate the carrots before you OD on it. You can OD easily on vitamin A, and the toxicity signs are not good, but that's why eating whole foods is a good way to do it. You can't OD on foods, generally speaking. However,
You can do it, but
yeah, it's hard to. It's probably possible, but selenium, though, through the Brazil nuts, you don't want to eat too many of those. Like, don't go out and eat a whole bag, every day, because there's a tight therapeutic window for selenium. You don't want to get too little or too much. So 200 micrograms, about 2 or 3 Brazil nuts a day, plus the other foods is plenty.
if you eat too much, but anything good. If you eat too many, then what happens?
Usually your body, because it's also packaged with fiber and other things, your body will just not, you won't be able to take it in, or you'll excrete it.
Oh, okay. So it's just a waste of your money.
I guess so, yeah. You don't want it, you want it to go in and stay in, yeah.
Now, olive oil, you said, I heard you said it really quick, do not heat it, but then the screen after that, then it says that during the process, even at cold pressing, there's still some heating in it.
There
that
is, but that's not frying the oil. Like if you're using olive oil, fry an egg, or let's say fry, I don't know, whatever you fry, that can damage the oil.
I'm guilty of that. I didn't know, and so I use that to make omelet.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I
did
think that's okay. A little sautéing or a little bit of like flipping an egg, that's totally fine. It's probably not going to oxidize the oil enough to make it harmful.
Okay, so
But
we
generally
should-
speaking,
that
try to
deep
keep
fry.
it in
Deep
its
fry.
original form.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
And then you said, and then I wonder if at Bastyr here, you have any kind of tests? If I come in and you would tell me between my food and my vitamins whether or not I'm doing okay.
There are some tests for certain vitamins, but not all vitamins. Some vitamins there's not good tests to determine your vitamin load for certain vitamins. So yes and no. Any other questions?
I have a question about sauteing, and usually I use canola oil for that. Is that a good thing?
Canola oil is mainly an omega-3, but this goes into the whole, I don't know if I want to open this can of worms, but it goes into the whole genetically modified issue. Some canola oils are genetically modified, and it's hard to get organic, non-GMO canola. So that's another reason why to eat organic, is that there are some things they do to our food that they don't tell us. Like, that's actually not labeled most of the time, and unless it says non-GMO, it could have some genetic modification, and that's one of the things that I have concerns about with regards to canola. So I used to use canola exclusively for anything other than olive oil, things, and now I've switched it up, and even though safflower and sunflower refined oils are mostly omega-6s, I'm using them more because I can get organic and know it's not, that it's probably not genetically modified. But canola is generally still a very good oil to use for high heat cooking. It's safe to use.
What were the two you said you used? Sunflower?
Oh, refine. So if you refine the oil, you can use it in high heat. So they have refined sunflower and safflower oils that are suitable for high heat. And those are good alternatives. But it's only because I don't know what they are doing with the canola. I have no idea.
One other quick question, which is, what do you recommend as a really good source for the electrolytes?
Usually just through foods. So there's something called Beeler's broth, B-E-I, I think it's B-E-I-L-E-R. It's basically just, a bunch of vegetables cooked down. That's the best electrolyte fluid. However, if you eat a good balanced diet, you don't need to take extra electrolytes. However, if you're an athlete, you're about to do a marathon, then take those electrolyte pills or powders because just quickly you're going to be losing electrolytes. So I sometimes will add that to my water, but if you're eating a regular good diet every day, you absolutely do not need extra electrolytes. In fact, that could lead to, you might actually get too many electrolytes if you supplement and you're eating a very healthy, whole foods, vegetable-rich diet.
Is coconut milk a good?
Coconut water?
Yeah, coconut water.
Yeah, the isotonic solution. That's actually a good one. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a really good source of electrolytes if you're going to go out and exercise and sweat a lot and lose your electrolytes. However, again, you could get it through your diet, like way cheaper just to make some vegetable broth and get vitamins and minerals also.
Skin tags, old age, or is there a way to
Um,
vitamin A deficiency?
Skin tags are not necessarily associated with old age. It can occur in places that there's high friction, so people often get them in their armpit or in other areas where there's a fold. There are a certain kind of skin tag also associated with a condition, which a separate condition. So it's good to have your skin tags looked at because there are certain there's a certain kind of condition that can lead to an unusual high number of skin tags, and that should be evaluated separately. But aside from that, your everyday skin tag here and there is actually pretty benign, and unless it's rubbing and bothering you in an area that's annoying, then it's actually nothing really to write home about. But you can get them removed, and they're usually not too big of a problem. Any other questions? In the back? Or I think that was, yeah.
I was just going to ask about her question about cooking or frying with canola oil or something. What about coconut oil? Cooking or frying?
Yeah, I think there's some actually health benefits to coconut oil and using that. I wouldn't use it every day because it is higher in saturated fat, but it definitely does impart its own health benefits. And there's all this literature right now, not right now, but there's been much literature on coconut oil and the health benefits of that. So just not every day because it does have, again, high saturated fats. So looks like I'm about